we can actually help to maintain natural services that nature provides over a long period of time, and that should be something that we all want. We should start thinking about this now. Authority exists, especially here in Canada, to do most of this. Enough information exists. We don't ever have perfect information. We should be getting ahead of the problem. I often hear, why do planning? There's no problem. But there are going to be problems sometime in the next 10 years, the next 20 years. Planning should anticipate that and develop plans to deal with those now rather than later. And we should learn by doing. Just go out and do some of this stuff rather than thinking about it all the time. And I'll end with that quotation from Confucius. Talk doesn't boil rice. Planners like to talk, and that doesn't get things done. We want to actually go out and do some things. So with that, I'll stop and be happy to talk some more if people are still alive and awake. Thank you.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a rabbit with a microphone here. Bring it out to you for questions that you might have so that the webcast can hear the questions and hear the answer. So I'll stand up here and take your name and make sure that I have you with your hand up, and someone else is going to run around with the microphone. So just let me know if you have a question and we'll get to you.
Okay, don't everybody jump up at the same time. All the way in the back. That's going to be difficult. You're going to run out of...
Hi there. My name's Lynn Lee, and I'm from Simon Fraser University. Can you give us some advice on stakeholder processes and what has been successful in other places and what has not? Because that's a key part of the planning process.
Yeah. Well, as I said, stakeholder participation is really context-specific, and it's hard for me to prescribe or even give you any real hard advice on how to involve stakeholders here. You sort of have to figure that out and take responsibility for that yourself. More stakeholder participation is better than less stakeholder participation, but there are implications for that. More stakeholder participation means more time and resources. It often sort of extends the time required for planning, and it certainly costs more. It costs the state of Massachusetts a lot of resources to go out and have an extensive stakeholder participation process. I think it's important to be very clear in the stakeholder process design about what you want from stakeholders and not raise expectations too high, because typically when people are involved in the planning process and eventually they don't like the outcome, they say, well, why didn't you consider my information, my opinion, my input to this process? So you have to make it very clear that ultimately, in most cases, not necessarily all cases, there are some cases of co-management where you would have different kinds of decisions made in the end. But in the most cases, the government, whether it's the national, provincial, local government of any process, has ultimate responsibility. They're going to be held accountable for it. If you're an NGO or you're just an individual citizen, you're not going to be accountable for whether or not the plan works. The government is. And so that has to be very clear and clearly stated. How you represent people is a tough question, and again, I can't give you any really hard advice on that. There are different types of users. There are some people who are direct users of resources in the marine environment. And there are some people that visit the area and say, well, we're a stakeholder too. We're here, a couple days a year, or we own a home in this area. We're here a month a year. But that may not be as important as the opinion of somebody who is out there every day doing work and relying on those uses for their income. So I think that's a dangerous statement to say there are different types or different levels of importance of stakeholders, but it's a reality. And you have to figure out how to say that in a little bit more eloquent way than I did. But you want to really make sure that the people who are dependent, who are most active users of the environment or are concerned about environmental conservation, and on the other side of that, are involved in the process. And sometimes you have to do some analysis to determine, well, this guy who has the big mouth may not be the most important person to listen to. Good example of that was what happened in Belgium. Again, stakeholder participation was not very thorough or active in that process, But one of the loudest opinions for what was going on, particularly in coastal waters, came from some fishermen. And they looked to see who these fishermen really were. They were distant water fishermen that weren't even fishing in the EEZ of Belgium. So, but I mean, they really, came on like gangbusters in terms of how terrible this whole plan was going to be with respect to their activities, which were not even close to the area being planned. So it takes some effort to look at how you would actually identify and, I don't want to say rank, but at least give some weight to the importance of opinions of different stakeholders. And if in fact you don't have the right stakeholders, you better go find them, because in the end they're going to bite you when you finish the plan. Yep. Steve? Oops, sorry.
Hello. My name is Sherry Boudreau. I'm helping to do a marine use plan for my First Nation. I'm characterizing it as a marine use plan versus a spatial plan for a specific reason. There's I've already read the document. It's a great document, first of all. Thanks very much. I guess I wanted to ask you, I wanted to actually steal you and have you for about 2 months, but I guess I have about 3 minutes here.
I can be bought.
But what I wanted to ask is, if we look at plans, and you talked about plans being part of an extension of land planning,
mm-hmm.
As an example and stuff,
right.
The surest way to change your plan is to finalize it. Because that's when people figure out, oh, that's where I can build, that's where I can't build. Now I want to build to the edge of that, and now I'm going to create my industry here, and now I'm going to create my bear plan there. So I understand the iterative nature of that.
Right.
My question is, with respect to planning, and I ask you this from your experience of spending the billions of dollars, and where did you get? At what point, do you have to have, or how can you compile your legislative authorities and have a good understanding of where to go forward and where to address your legislative authorities so that it has some effect on the plans? Like you talk about existing silos already, the departmental authorities. How would you suggest going about integrating the consideration of those legislative authorities in the concept of finalizing your plan?
Okay. Well, there are different ways to look at authority, and authority doesn't only have to come from legislation. There are certainly examples where marine plans have been developed with no national legislation. And the Netherlands is one place. Norway has no national legislation that says do spatial planning, and neither does Belgium. In all of those cases, there was an agreement among agencies of government, and again, they were all at the national level in those three cases. There was an agreement made and signed, an understanding, that said that we would develop this plan jointly. We would abide by the outcome or the output of that plan. We're not going to give up any of our authorities, but we will make decisions, individual, incremental permit decisions or investment decisions that would be based on the agreed plan. And in all three of those cases, not so much Belgium, I'll tell you about that in a second, but in the Netherlands case and in the Norwegian case, the agencies abide by the plan, which is not enforceable, which is another nice thing to have in terms of planning authority. You want to be able to enforce the plan. But they have agreed to sort of work as a team under this guidance to make single sector decisions in the context of that plan. So it can work that way. The problem is that administrations come and go, and if the political leader or the political will